Speak a good word or remain silent. Speak a good word or remain silent. Speak a good word or remain silent.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام عليك يا رسول الله وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا حبيب الله الصلاة والسلام عليك يا نبي الله وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا نور الله. My dear Islamic brothers and the viewers of Madani Channel, welcome again to the new silsila, new serial of Madani Channel, where insha'Allah Azza wa Jal we will today go through the consequences of not having sincerity and how to attain sincerity, how to attain ikhlas. Before we continue any further, let's listen to the virtue of reciting Durood Sharif upon Holy Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wasallam. Therefore, Hazrat Sayyiduna Imam Fakhruddin Razi alayhi rahmatullahi al-Hadi has stated in Tafsir Kabir that on the day of judgment, when virtues of a Muslim will become lighter on the scale, Holy Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wasallam would take out a piece of paper and place it on the scale of virtues, which would cause it to become heavier. He will humbly ask, "May my parents be sacrificed for you. How handsome you are, how graceful your behavior is. Kindly tell me who you are." The Holy Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wasallam reply, "I am your Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wasallam, and this is your salat, your durood, which you had recited upon me. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wasallam." Alhamdulillah Azza wa Jal, my dear Islamic brothers, in the previous silsila, we went through the definition of sincerity and tried to develop a mindset to attain sincerity. In today's silsila, insha'Allah Azza wa Jal, let's go through the consequences of not having sincerity and how exactly can we attain sincerity. So my dear Islamic brothers and the viewers of Madani Channel, doing a pious deed without having sincerity is nothing else apart from being at loss. Therefore, Hazrat Sayyiduna Imam Ghazali alayhi rahmatullahi wali writes in his famous book Ihya al-Ulum Sharif, explaining the consequences of not having sincerity, ikhlas, in these words, that the ones who are negligent of sincerity on the day of judgment, they will find all their pious deeds in the shape of sins. Those people will think that they will be rewarded on the day of judgment because according to them they have been doing good deeds, but because their intentions were other than pleasing Allah Azza wa Jal, that's why their deeds are considered to be at the biggest loss. One of the biggest consequences of not having sincerity is that the person does not get the reward for his actions, and that action of his does not get accepted in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal. Now just imagine, my dear Islamic brothers and the viewers of Madani Channel, that we go through all that hard effort. Let's take the example, Nafli fast, volunteer fast. Let's take that example. It is very hot, extremely hot, and now we are fasting for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. But now, whilst we are fasting, we want others to know that we are fasting, so we can impress them. So and so is fasting, is having a Nafil fast. We want to impress other people that we are so pious that we fast even in such extreme heat, in such hot weather, and not fard rozeh, not fard fasts, but voluntary fast, nafil fasts. Now one person is going through all that hard efforts. He's not eating or drinking anything throughout the day. He's bearing all those hardships. He's dealing with all worldly matters whilst fasting. But again, he is thinking that other people become aware of his fasts. Then how unfortunate that person would be, that he is going through all the hard effort, but again, along with that, in his heart, he would have this intention that other people may become aware of this fact that he is fasting. How unfortunate would that person be? And how fortunate would the person be who is fasting all day long, but no one other than him and Allah Azza wa Jal knows that this specific individual is fasting. He does all other matters calmly and doesn't complain and doesn't want that other people come to know about his fast either. How fortunate this specific individual is. The amount of efforts from both people, one who wanting other people to know that he is fasting, and the one who do not want other people to know that he is fasting, the amount of effort is same, but the reward is completely different for both of them. So if we are fasting, because fasting for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, this shall be the only intention behind fasting and any other action. But if we add any other intentions, then we are at the biggest of the losses, as mentioned in Ihya al-Ulum Sharif by Imam Ghazali rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh. But that those people who perform good actions with the intention of showing off, they will be at the biggest loss, because they will think that they have done so and so good actions. But those good actions will be of no use for them. On the contrary, they will become a mean of punishment for them. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Holy Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said that Allah Azza wa Jal does not accept such an action which even consists of a smallest amount of riyah, smallest amount of ostentation, of showing off. Imam Bayhaqi alayhi rahmatullahi al-Qawi says that the day when people will be rewarded as per their actions, Allah Azza wa Jal will say to those who used to perform ostentation, who used to show off, that go to the ones for whom you used to perform righteous actions and see whether you get any reward from them or not. And my dear Islamic brothers, if this is what we are told by Allah Azza wa Jal on the Day of Judgment, then how unfortunate we will be, as who else other than Allah Azza wa Jal would be able to give us reward? Who else other than Allah Azza wa Jal will be able to safeguard us? Who other than Allah Azza wa Jal will be able to assist us, will be able to shower His mercy upon us? So my dear Islamic brothers, as we are told that those who perform ostentation on the Day of Judgment, they will be told to go and earn reward from those for whom they used to perform ostentation. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. In order to understand the consequences of not having sincerity and how harmful it is to have ostentation and riyakari and show off in our actions, let's listen to this hadith mubarakah which has been mentioned in Muslim Sharif and in Nisa'i Sharif on the authority of Hazrat Sayyidina Abu Huraira radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who narrates that the mercy of the mankind, the peace of our hearts and minds, the most generous and kind sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam has stated that first of all, a person's accountability will be done on the Day of Judgment, who will be a martyr. So a martyr's accountability will be taken on the Day of Judgment. He will be brought. Allah Azza wa Jal will inquire from him about the bounties that were showered upon him. The martyr, the shaheed, will acknowledge all those bounties. He will then be asked, what did you do in return of these favors? He will say that I fought in your way and even got martyred. Allah Azza wa Jal will say that you are a liar, you killed, so that people call you brave, which you have been called. It will be ordered for him to be thrown in the hell whilst his face being rubbed on the ground. Then there will be another person who would have learnt and taught ilm-e-deen, the knowledge, the sacred knowledge of deen, of religion. he would have learned and taught the Holy Quran, he will be called upon. He will be asked upon the favors that were bestowed upon him. He will tell about those favors and acknowledge all of them. Allah Azza wa Jal will ask, what deeds did you commit in return of these favors? He will say, I learned ilm, knowledge for your sake and taught it to others, and read the Holy Quran and taught it to others. It will be said that you are a liar, you gained ilm, you gained knowledge with the intention that you are called an alim, a scholar, and read the Holy Quran so that you are called qari, which you have been called. And he will be ordered to be dragged into the hell. Another person will be called upon who had been given immense wealth and riches by Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah Azza wa Jal will ask him for the favors that were showered upon him. He will acknowledge all the favors. He will be asked that what actions did you commit in return of these favors? He will say that I spent for you in all those ways which were dearer to you, and I gave sadaqah for your sake. It will be said that you are a liar, you spent so that you are called generous. You are called sakhi, which you have been called. He will also be ordered to be dragged down into the hellfire. My dear Islamic brothers, you see, getting martyred whilst fighting in the path of Allah Azza wa Jal, reading and teaching the glorious revelation of Allah Azza wa Jal, the Holy Quran, and spending in the path of Allah Azza wa Jal are undoubtedly very righteous actions. But because of the lack of sincerity, because of the absence of sincerity, all these pious deeds were destroyed and could not prevent them from the punishment. In fact, because of the lack of sincerity, all these actions became a mean of punishment for them. So we come to know that the sincerity, ikhlas, is the key to the acceptance of our a'mal, of the deeds. Therefore, we shall enlighten our hearts with the importance of sincerity, and we shall try our utmost best to have sincerity in all of our pious deeds that we commit. My dear Islamic brothers and the viewers of Madani Channel, after listening to this Hadith Mubarakah, we all shall tremble with the fear of Allah Azza wa Jal and beg Allah Azza wa Jal for ikhlas, for sincerity. Just think that how Allah Azza wa Jal dealt with a martyr, with a scholar, and with a generous person. Due to their lack of ikhlas, lack of sincerity, Allah Azza wa Jal threw them into the hellfire. Oh, what about us? We are so negligent that all of our actions are lacking ikhlas. We are always after our praise by others. For a second, forget about having ikhlas into our actions. First of all, if we are able to perform any good actions, we shall first of all ask ourselves this, that whether we do possess any righteous actions in our nama a'mal, in our book of deeds. And if we do have any righteous actions in our book of deed, in our nama a'mal, do they consist of ikhlas? Were those actions committed, performed just to please Allah Azza wa Jal? Or were they performed to gain respect, fame, popularity from others? We need to ponder upon our state, my dear Islamic brothers. My dear Islamic brothers and the viewers of Madani Channel, this is a moment to ponder upon that in our worships, if the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal is the only main aim, then don't even, if this is the case, if the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal is the only aim in our worships, then don't even let this thought come anywhere near you that I shall be called generous, that my generosity shall be famous amongst others, that people shall start respecting me, so on and so forth. Otherwise, there's nothing else apart from destruction. There's nothing else apart from being at loss and apart from being at the biggest of the losses, because the same efforts that we are putting in to perform these good actions would actually become means of sins for us. And instead of being successful because of performing these good actions, we will be doomed on the day of judgment. We will be destroyed, as was the case with the martyr, as was the case with a qari, the one who learnt and taught ilm-e-deen, as was the case with a generous person who spent his wealth in the path of Allah Azza wa Jal. So how unfortunate would the specific individual be for whom the same action that he performed, because of having ostentation, show off, and because of not having any ikhlas and sincerity in his actions, same action will become a mean of his destruction. How unfortunate would that person be? Let's listen to another parable to understand further the consequences of not having ikhlas. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. There were two people from Bani Israel, one very pious and the other was a great sinner who used to commit sins openly. Day in, day out, he would commit sins. One day, this sinful person saw that the pious person is sitting in sunshine and there is a cloud providing him with shade. The sinful person thought to himself that I should go and sit alongside this pious person. Who knows, Allah Azza wa Jal may forgive my sins due to the piety of this pious person. So the sinful person went and sat by the side of the pious person. The pious person did not like this and thought to himself in arrogance that how dare this sinful person come and sit next to me? So he asked him to leave. As the sinful person left, the cloud also left with him and began to provide shade to him. Allah Azza wa Jal sent a revelation to the Prophet alayhi salatu salam of that time that go to these two people and tell them to begin their deeds all over again, because whatever the sinner has done, I have forgiven him for his good intention, and I have erased all the good deeds of the pious person due to his arrogance. My dear Islamic brothers, arrogance burns good deeds of even the most righteous people. Then how about us? Our situation is that to begin with, we don't even do any good deeds, and if we do, then we begin to think of ourselves as a pious person and tend to look down upon others. We should learn a lesson from the story of these two people of Bani Israel. Seed of arrogance gets planted in the heart after having lack of sincerity. If someone is sincere and performs righteous actions for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, then he will be saved from the destructive illness such as arrogance. And on the contrary, if the one who lacks sincerity, he will fall into the trap of shaitan and end up being trapped with the destructive habit of being arrogant and will end up losing all his righteous actions, if any he has at the first place. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So my dear Islamic brothers and the viewers of Madani Channel, we come to learn that the lack of sincerity also results in a person being arrogant. Now, if someone has the intention of pleasing Allah Azza wa Jal only, if this is the only intention one has before he performs anything, then this destructive illness of arrogance wouldn't even come close to him. If you look at the seerah of Awliya Karam rahimahumullah, and even if you look at the seerah of our beloved Amir Ahl Sunnah Damat Barakatuhum al-Aliyah, despite them having a lot of good deeds in their book of deeds, despite their every second, every moment of their life being spent for the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal, in the worship of Allah Azza wa Jal in one way or the other, still we see how keen, how polite they are with those people who are away from the right path. We see the people of showbiz, we see the people from all fields of life coming in the Madani Muzakaras, and when they meet Amir Ahl Sunnah Damat Barakatum Al Aliyah, how polite Amir Ahl Sunnah Damat Barakatum Al Aliyah is with them. And as a result, we see many people, many individuals, they reform themselves. There is a Madani transformation in themselves. And Alhamdulillah Azza wa Jal, because of this arrogance, being away, millions of miles away from the likes of Amir Ahl Sunnat, we can understand the level of sincerity they would have in their a'mal. So following the same footsteps, my dear Islamic brothers, we need to try, we need to strive to ascertain that our a'mal are free from ostentation, from riyakari, from showing off, and our actions possess the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal. Insha'Allah Azza wa Jal, with the blessings of this, we will stay away from arrogance, and Insha'Allah Azza wa Jal, soft-heartedness will also develop in ourselves. Insha'Allah Azza wa Jal. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. My dear Islamic brothers and the viewers of Madani Channel, every single Muslim should pay special attention to sincerity at the beginning, middle, and at the end of a righteous action. To help us gain more sincerity in our action, we should familiarize ourselves with incidents and sayings of our pious predecessors rahimahumullah, and try to follow upon their footsteps. Therefore, Hazrat Sayyiduna Mawla Mushkil Kusha Aliul Murtada Sher Khuda Karramallahu Ta'ala Wajhahul Kareem advises us on how to attain sincerity. That they say, do spend, but don't tell everyone that you have spent. Don't raise your personality so that your zikr is being done, meaning you are being mentioned and people start recognizing you. Instead, keep yourself hidden and adopt silence. You will remain safe. Pious people will become happy and sinners will become angry. My dear Islamic brothers, the narration that has just been mentioned, please do not think that speaking about pious deeds at any stage is forbidden. There are certain scenarios where we are allowed to disclose our pious deeds. For example, if someone is loved by so many people who follow him, he can let them know of his pious deed with the intention that others will also follow him. We can disclose it for any lawful purpose and where the Sharia permits us to do so. Now, someone disclosing his pious deeds with a good intention will not be considered as ostentation, but instead he will be rewarded for it. As it is narrated in Muslim Sharif that Hazrat Sayyiduna Abdullah bin Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu gave his slave an animal to sacrifice in the month of sacrificing and said, go and announce in the streets of Medina that this is the sacrificing animal of Abdullah. Obviously, the purpose for this was that the people come to know that the days of sacrificing the animal have arrived and sacrificing is wajib. Similarly, if you committed an action hidden and someone asked you regarding that action, now in order to answer that person regarding your action will not be considered to be ostentation, because in order to hide this action now, once someone has asked you about an action, if you hide this action from him now, you will have to lie about it, and lying is a major sin. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So along with this beautiful Madani pearl, that there are certain scenarios where we can disclose our righteous actions, which we have gone through. We must understand that when we talk about this, or when we see someone disclosing their righteous actions, we must not start judging them that if he is disclosing, he must be showing off. If he is disclosing, the intention behind his disclosure is to show off. When we are talking about the definition of sincerity and staying away from showing off, this is mainly and solely for our own selves. We by no means are to judge anyone, if anyone is disclosing their a'mal, their actions, then we don't know what intentions they have behind disclosing their actions. And by no means we should be judging someone that if someone is disclosing their actions, why exactly are they disclosing? We have nothing to do with someone's disclosure. In fact, if we have a good opinion, a husn zan about his disclosure, if we start envying them, inshallah azza wa jal, this good opinion, this husn zan about our Islamic brother will actually benefit us in the hereafter. So if someone is disclosing their actions, there might be a lawful reason for which they are doing that. So we shall not start judging anyone, or in fact we shall never judge anyone. We shall only and solely contemplate upon our own self that the actions that we are doing, whether they're full of sincerity or full of ostentation. So when we look at the definitions of sincerity and ostentation, it is mainly to contemplate upon our own state rather than just start judging other people. So very importantly, we need to understand that all this is not being mentioned so we understand the definition of sincerity, the definition of ostentation, and start judging others, but it is to basically contemplate upon our own selves, and first of all to strive to reform our own selves. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Another Buzurg rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi states that I had a great desire to meet Hazrat Sayyiduna Khizr ala nabiyyina wa alayhi salatu wasalam, so that I can learn some essential knowledge from him. When I did see Hazrat Khizr alayhi salatu wasalam, I made the following request. O Abul Abbas alayhi salam, there was the kunyat of Sayyiduna, the patronymy of Sayyiduna Khizr alayhi salam, that O Abul Abbas, I wish to learn a dua that when I recite it, I become invisible in the eyes of people and lose all the material value. No one should think of me as a pious person. Upon this request, Hazrat Sayyiduna Khizr alayhi salatu wasalam told me the following dua. The closest translation is, O Allah Azza wa Jal, hide me in your veils and reveal upon me your secrets, and make people forget about me and downgrade me in their eyes. This Buzurg rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh then became unknown, and people started to joke around with him to such an extent that children used to gather around him and throw different stuff at him. This treatment would give this Buzurg alayhi rahmah a great satisfaction and steadfastness. मैं इश्क में यूं गुम हो जाऊं, हरगिज़ ना पता अपना पाऊं, दीवाना ज़माना कह कह कर पत्थर मुझ पर बरसाता रहे, मोहब्बत में अपनी घुमा या इलाही, ना पाऊं मैं अपना पता या इलाही, मेरा हर अमल बस तेरे वास्ते हो, कर इखलास ऐसा अता या इलाही, कर इखलास ऐसा अता या इलाही, कर इखलास ऐसा अता या इलाही. सल्लू अलल हबीब सल्लल्लाहु ताला अला मुहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु ताला अलैहि व आलिहि वसल्लम. Now, the question we need to ask ourselves is, would we be happy if we are put in a situation like this Buzurg rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh? Can we afford ourselves to be degraded in the eyes of people for the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal? Our state is such that in order to please people and to look good in their eyes, we would go to the extent of missing sunnah and, in some cases, even fara'id. Not just that, we may even do things that are against Sharia just for the sake of pleasing other people. This is the level of our sincerity that we possess, my dear Islamic brothers. Hazrat Sayyiduna Yahya bin Muaz rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh was asked once that when is it that a person becomes sincere, full of ikhlas, full of sincerity? When is it that someone becomes sincere? He rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh said, when he would become like a child. When someone praises a small child, he doesn't particularly like it. And when someone criticizes a child, this also doesn't have any effect on him. Just like this child, when a person pays no attention to his praise or criticism from others, only then he becomes sincere. This is also another sign described by Buzurgan Deen rahimahumullah of a person who is lacking sincerity. This person would become very active at doing good deeds when he is in the company of other people, but when there's no one around him, he or she would become lazy in performing the same righteous actions that he would perform in front of other people. This is also sign of lack of sincerity. Now, how exactly to find sincerity? There is a beautiful aid to finding sincerity. Buzurgan Deen rahimahumullah, they say that we should hide our good deeds just the way we hide our sins. We don't want others to find out about our sins. Similarly, our good deeds should be between us and our Rabb Ta'ala Azza wa Jal. In our Nama A'mal, we should have at least few good deeds that no one else knows about them except Allah Azza wa Jal. When we tell our good deeds to others, we run a great risk of ostentation, and it is likely that by doing this, Allah Azza wa Jal may not reward us for these good deeds on the day of judgment, just like the story of three people mentioned earlier in the beginning, a story of martyr, of a learned scholar, and a generous person who did sadaqah in the path of Allah Azza wa Jal. But why weren't those actions accepted? Because that was in order to gain respect and popularity in the sight of people and not to please Allah Azza wa Jal. To illustrate this point further of hiding our good deeds, I'll tell you a little story of Amir Ahl Sunnah Damat Barakatum al-Aliyah, which they mention in their beautiful book Rafiqul Haramain Sharif. They say that there were two people traveling in a train sitting next to each other. One person asks the other, "What's your name?" The second person replies, "I am Haji Rafiq." "What is your name?" The first person says, "I am Namazi Siddiq." Now, Haji Rafiq gets a bit surprised and says, "Why are you calling yourself Namazi Siddiq? I've never heard anybody call themselves Namazi so-and-so." To this, Namazi Siddiq says that you have performed Hajj only once in your lifetime and you are calling yourself Haji? I perform 5 prayers on daily basis. Why can't I call myself Namazi? The lesson Madani pulls behind this anecdote is that we should always hide our good deeds. And by making popularity, by making other people aware of our righteous actions, of our good deeds that we perform, we run a great risk of falling into the traps of Shaitan or Rajim, by falling in the trap of being inflicted with the destructive disease of showing off. And my dear Islamic brothers, as mentioned various times before during the silsila, that how unfortunate would be the person who would go through all the hard efforts of performing a good deed, a righteous action, but at the end, just because of lack of sincerity, just because of having the intention of pleasing other people, just because of having the intention and desire of gaining respect in the sight of other people, just because of having the intention so that people start praising me, people start calling me pious people, just because of these ill intentions, all that hard efforts goes in vain. And on the day of judgment, the main reason why we actually perform these righteous actions, just to please Allah Azza wa Jal, so we can be successful in the hereafter, we can be saved from the punishment of grave, we can be saved from the punishment of fire, just because of all these intentions which we perform good actions. But when we have all these ill intentions such of ostentation and showing off, just imagine how unfortunate the person will be on the day of judgment, that he will be told to go away from the sight of Allah Azza wa Jal, from the sight of mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. Despite having gone through the hard times of performing the good deeds, the person will be deprived from the reward from the court of Allah Azza wa Jal because of the lack of absence because of having the desire of being respected in the sight of other people. So my dear Islamic brothers, as a conclusion, we conclude the importance of sincerity to be immense in our actions. In fact, if there is no sincerity, if there is lack of sincerity, then our a'mal, our deeds are of no use to us. May Allah Azza wa Jal save us from the lack of sincerity, from the absence of sincerity in our actions. May Allah Azza wa Jal save us from showing off ostentation into our actions, and may Allah Azza wa Jal grant us with the tawfiq, with the ability, with having ikhlas and sincerity in our actions, and with the ability to perform every action just to please Allah Azza wa Jal, just to please Allah Azza wa Jal, just to please Allah Azza wa Jal. And let's conclude all this by supplicating in the bargah of Allah Azza wa Jal that mera har amal bas tere wasite ho, kar ikhlas aisa ata ya ilahi. Ameen bijahin nabiyyil ameen sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Sallu ala al-habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam.
Speak a good word or remain silent. Speak a good word or remain silent. Speak a